They tried to erase him, burn his shrines, silence his name. But you can still hear the thunder across oceans and centuries, through chains and exile. His name rolls like a storm in the mouths of his descendants. Sango, king, warrior, god of thunder, a name once feared by enemies and revered by followers, now whispered in reverence from Lagos to Havana, Bahia to Brooklyn. Who was this man whose legacy refused to die, even as empires rose and fell? Sango was no ordinary ruler. His story blurs the lines between history and myth, man and deity. Born a prince of the Oyo Empire in what is now southwestern Nigeria, he rose to become Alafin, the supreme king, but his rule was anything but ordinary. Described as charismatic, volatile, and immensely powerful, Sango commanded not just armies, but storms. He was said to call down lightning upon his enemies, a claim so legendary that when he died, whether by suicide, divine ascent, or betrayal, his followers refused to let him go. Instead, they deified him. He became an Orisha, a spiritual force of nature. When European powers invaded Africa not just with guns, but with missionaries and Bibles, Sango became a target. The British and their Christian allies saw indigenous deities as demonic, superstitious relics of a primitive people. Shrines were torn down. Worship was outlawed. Children were taught to fear the Orishas, the pantheon of Yoruba gods, and to forget their names. And yet, somehow they didn't. The more he was suppressed, the deeper Sango seemed to root himself into the soul of the Yoruba people. His myth refused to die. It grew teeth. Even in chains, Sango's worship crossed oceans. Among the enslaved in the Americas, he transformed and adapted, surviving through secret rites, new names, and hidden symbols. Wherever thunder cracked in the sky, people remembered. His essence lived on in dance, in ritual, in rhythm. He became more than a deity. He was a symbol of identity, resistance, and ancestral power. His survival was not accidental. It was willed, fought for, and handed down. In this video, we'll uncover the incredible story of Sango, the Thunder King the colonizers couldn't kill. We'll journey from his mortal origins to his divine transformation, through centuries of persecution, into his rebirth across the African diaspora. Because Sango is more than just a god. He is resistance. He is memory. He is proof that spiritual power cannot be extinguished by bullets or Bibles. So if you've ever wondered what happens when mythology fights back, when a forgotten god roars to life, you're about to find out. Long before he was worshipped as a god, Sango ruled as a man. But not just any man, a warrior king whose presence stirred fear, loyalty, and legend across the vast plains of the Oyo Empire. His story begins in the heart of Yoruba land, a cradle of power, trade, and spiritual depth in West Africa. Born into royalty, Sango was the son of Oranmiyan, a formidable king who had laid the foundations of what would become one of the most sophisticated political systems in pre-colonial Africa. But Sango's destiny would not be to merely inherit a throne. It would be to transform it. As Alafin, the supreme monarch of Oyo, Sango was said to possess a magnetic charisma and a tempestuous temper, much like the storms he would later command. He was both admired and feared, a man of intense passion and unpredictable fury. His rule was marked by expansionist ambition. He led military campaigns that extended the reach of Oyo's influence, asserting dominance with both diplomacy and fire. But it wasn't just his prowess on the battlefield that set him apart. It was the whispers, the rumors, that Sango wielded a power no other king had. They said he could command lightning, that when he roared in anger, the skies echoed with thunder, that his enemies fell not just by the sword, but by bolts from the heavens. Whether these tales were born of awe, fear, or truth, They spread like wildfire through Yoruba lands. His court became a place of mystique, where oracles spoke of omens and storms gathered as if summoned. Even his wives, among them Oya, the tempestuous wind goddess, were wrapped in myth, adding layers of divine intrigue to his life. Yet power comes with peril. As Sango's fame grew, so did the envy and suspicion of his rivals. His rule, though dazzling, was far from peaceful. Factions within his court plotted against him. The balance between reverence and rebellion teetered on a knife's edge. In some accounts, his demise came at the hands of political betrayal. In others, a tragic flaw, a miscalculated act of rage, led to his undoing. And in the most mythic tellings, he ascended to the sky, consumed by lightning, and was reborn as the Orisha of thunder. What's undeniable is that in death, Sango's legend only grew stronger. His name became sacred, his story immortal, and his transformation from king to god marked the beginning of something far greater, a spiritual force that would shake the world. Death did not silence Sango, it crowned him. In the aftermath of his mysterious end, his people could not accept that such a force could simply vanish. A man who made the skies roar could not merely die. And so legend took over where history ended. In the stories passed down from elders to children, Sango did not perish. He transcended. He became more than a memory. He became a god. As an Orisha, Sango's domain was thunder, lightning, fire, and justice. He was no distant, abstract deity. He was raw, immediate power. His presence was felt in every crack of thunder, every flash across the night sky. He was invoked in times of conflict and injustice, called upon to strike down liars, oppressors, and the wicked. His followers feared and loved him in equal measure, for Sango was a god who did not whisper, he shouted. He did not wait, he acted. Symbols became central to his worship. His iconic double-headed axe, representing balance and divine wrath, became a sacred emblem. So too did the Edun Ara, lightning stones said to have fallen from the heavens, physical proof of Sango's might. These stones, buried in the earth after storms, were retrieved by priests and used in rituals that connected the living to the divine. His color was red, the color of war and fire, passion and sacrifice. His dances were fierce and rhythmically thunderous. His praise songs shook the air like distant rumbling clouds. Sango did not walk alone in the spirit world. He was one among the Yoruba pantheon of Orishas, each governing aspects of nature and human life. But his bond with Oya, goddess of the whirlwind, the marketplace, and change, was especially powerful. Some stories say she was his fiercest wife, a tempest to match his thunder. Together their storms raged in myth and ritual, their union symbolizing chaos, passion, and transformation. As his cult spread, so did his personality. In some places he was seen as a fierce judge, in others, a protector. In all, he remained a force of nature, unpredictable and supreme. His priests channeled his energy through drumming, possession, and ritual speech, and his devotees wore red and white to honor him during ceremonies. His festivals drew thousands, bodies moving in sync with ancestral beats, voices raised in praise, calling down lightning with every breath. To worship Sango was never a quiet affair. It was defiant, it was electric, and in the wake of his divine ascent, the world had to contend with a new truth, that thunder no longer belonged to nature alone. It belonged to a king, a god, who refused to be forgotten. For centuries, Sango thundered freely across the Yoruba lands. His shrines stood tall, his priests were respected, his name invoked with awe. But then came the silence, not the silence of peace, but of conquest, the kind of silence that follows gunfire and broken treaties, the kind enforced by crosses wielded like swords. With the arrival of European colonialism, especially British imperial forces in the 19th century, an aggressive spiritual campaign was launched to wipe out gods like Sango, not just to conquer people, but to sever them from their ancestral roots. Missionaries didn't merely build churches, they declared war on memory. To them, the Orishas were not sacred beings, but demons in disguise. The vibrant, complex cosmology of the Yoruba was reduced to idol worship, witchcraft, paganism. Converts were told they must abandon their gods, their customs, even their names to be accepted by the new Christian order. Schools were opened not to educate, but to indoctrinate. Children were taught to fear Sango, not just to forget him, but to believe that remembering him was a sin. Shrines were desecrated, sacred groves were burned or turned into farmlands. Priests were humiliated in public squares. Oral traditions, once the heartbeat of the culture, were dismissed as backwards and banned in formal settings. The colonial machine didn't simply erase, it replaced. Sunday hymns took the place of ancestral chants. Bibles replaced talking drums. The very sky under which Sango had once ruled was now declared the dominion of a foreign god. And yet, Sango did not vanish. He receded into shadows, into whispers, into hidden rituals performed in secret. He became the god of resistance, worshipped behind closed doors, his name spoken only in trusted company. Some blended his image with Christian saints to mask devotion. Others encoded his symbols in art, dance, and language. The more the colonizers tried to silence him, the more resilient his myth became. Because for the Yoruba, Sango wasn't just a religious figure, he was identity itself, a symbol of everything that could not be colonized. Memory, spirit, thunder. This spiritual warfare wasn't just about belief, it was about control. Erasing gods was a way to erase histories, cultures, and the right to define one's reality. But not all flames die when buried. Some burn hotter in the dark. And so, while churches rose across Yoruba land, Sango's thunder kept rumbling beneath the surface, waiting for its time to strike again. They took the people, but the gods went with them. Shackled, beaten, and forced across the Atlantic in the belly of slave ships, the Yoruba carried more than wounds and sorrow. They carried memory, and in that memory, Sango survived. Though the captors stripped away language, name, and homeland, they couldn't extinguish belief. In Cuba, in Brazil, in Haiti, in Trinidad, wherever Yoruba blood spilled, Sango rose again under new names, in new rituals, still roaring with thunder. In Cuba, he became Shango, a central Orisha in Santeria. In Brazil, he was Sango, fierce and celebrated in candomblé. In Trinidad, he danced through the spirit of Shango Baptist traditions. Though the names shifted, the essence remained. Fire, lightning, justice, and passion. His colors stayed red and white. His power still rumbled in the beat of bata drums, in the feet of dancers possessed by his spirit. In each region, enslaved Africans fused Yoruba cosmology with Catholic imagery, survival through syncretism. Sango was sometimes masked as Saint Barbara or Saint Jerome, hiding in plain sight, cloaked in a cross but burning with ancestral fire. This adaptation wasn't just clever, it was necessary. Public worship of African gods could be punished by death. So the faithful hid their truth behind the veil of European saints. They lit candles for Saint Barbara while calling out to Sango. They rang church bells, knowing they echoed the sound of thunder. They baptized their children in Christian names, but taught them oriki, praise poetry, on quiet nights by the fire. Through these acts, spiritual resistance thrived. And more than worship, Sango became a symbol of pride and defiance. In societies built to erase African identity, Shango was a declaration: we are still here. He became part of festivals, processions, sacred chants, and healing rituals. He gave strength to the oppressed and balance to those caught between two worlds, Africa and the Americas, tradition and survival. Even today, his shrines stand tall in Salvador da Bahia, in Havana, in Port of Spain. His followers dance barefoot on tiled floors, eyes rolled back in trance, channeling a god who never needed permission to return. The thunder followed the people, the god followed the thunder, and in every place he was reborn. He whispered a truth colonialism could never crush. I am not gone. I am transformed. The god who once moved through whispers now walks in the open. After centuries of hiding, Sango is rising again, not just in ritual, but in voice, in pride, in identity. Across the globe, a spiritual reawakening is taking root, and at its center stands the Thunder King. From Nigeria to New York, Bahia to Berlin, more and more people, especially among African descendants, are turning back to the gods of their ancestors. And among them, Sango's roar is one of the loudest. In Nigeria, his shrines are no longer relics, but sites of pilgrimage. The annual Sango festival in Oyo draws thousands who come to honor him with drumming, dancing, and fire. It's not just a celebration, it's a reclamation. Elders pass down oriki, sacred poetry, to younger generations. Initiates undergo rites of passage to reconnect with traditions once shamed or outlawed. The red and white cloth of Sango is worn with defiant joy. His priests speak publicly again. His name no longer has to hide. Online, his resurgence is even louder. On platforms like TikTok and Instagram, creators share rituals, myths, and teachings. Young people raised in Christian households are discovering Sango not as a demonized idol, but as a symbol of strength and justice. He's appearing in documentaries, in music, in fashion. Artists paint him, writers invoke him, dancers embody his thunder, and across the diaspora, African spirituality is being redefined, not as something strange or foreign, but as something deeply personal and powerful. This revival isn't about nostalgia, it's about healing. It's about returning to the source. After centuries of disconnection, colonial trauma, and spiritual erasure, many are asking, who were we before we were told who to be? In that question, Sango is the answer, not because he's perfect, but because he's real. He's rage and justice. He's complexity and contradiction. He's the fire that refuses to go out. In a world hungry for authenticity, the Orisha of thunder feels more relevant than ever. Climate chaos, social upheaval, a craving for justice. Sango speaks to the storm both within and without. And in every bolt of lightning, every roll of thunder, his message echoes. Reclaim what was taken. Remember who you are. The gods never left. We just stopped listening. The story of Sango is not just the tale of a king who became a god. It's the story of memory that refused to die, a symbol that endured chains, conquest, exile, and silence, only to return louder, fiercer, and more relevant than ever. His thunder is not just in the sky, but in the heartbeat of those who remember. He is the embodiment of resistance, the keeper of ancestral rage and power, the spark that leaps across time and geography to remind us that spirit cannot be colonized. We began with a question. Who was Sango? Why was he targeted? Why is he still worshipped? And now we know. Sango was a man, a king, bold and flawed. He was a god, a force of nature, unpredictable and mighty. He was a target because he represented everything colonizers feared: identity, culture, autonomy, and he is still worshipped because he never left. He lives in the rituals of priests and priestesses, in the voices of griots, in the movements of dancers, in the red and white garments of his followers. He lives because people chose to remember, chose to resist. Across Nigeria, the Caribbean, South America, North America, and even Europe, Sango has found new life in a new era. His thunder is not just myth, it is movement. As younger generations rediscover their roots, Sango stands as a powerful reminder of who we were before the world told us to forget. He is fire in the blood. He is the roar that wakes the sleeping. He is proof that no matter how many shrines are torn down, you cannot kill a god whose name lives in the hearts of the people. So the next time you hear thunder rolling across the sky, ask yourself, who's really speaking? And when you see lightning cut the night in half, remember, some stories strike back. Some gods were never meant to be forgotten. If this journey through the legacy of Sango moved you, make sure to like this video, leave a comment below with your thoughts or experiences, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that history tried to bury, but we dig up. The gods are speaking. Are you listening?